Good morning, Larimer County, and welcome to our January 8th, 2024 work session. Our topic, our focus for today is to receive an update regarding our Climate Smart Future Ready and our ICARE programs, and I'll let our presenters at the appropriate time tell us what that particular acronym stands for. My name is John Kafalis, Commissioner from District 1, 2024 Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. I'm joined by my fellow commissioners, Jody Shattuck McNally from District 3 and Kristen Stevens from District 2, as well as our wonderful County Manager, Lorenda Volker. So with that said, before we turn it over to our presenters, Lorenda, is there anything you'd like to say to perhaps provide some context, cue things up a bit?
Sure. I think this is part of the larger effort that we've been undergoing, this idea that we can affect the climate in our little way and that we can do things to move that needle forward. There's a community component and then there's an internal component. Abby has done tremendous work on this internal piece. She's developed a web page and has a really great team working on this together. And today is really the next step in showing what these goals could be. There's one, I think, that is on hold, and we'll talk about that as we go forward. We need a little more information to establish one goal. And I guess, Abby, I will turn it over to you. Are you leading this?
Thank you, Lorenda. Thank you very much. Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning. Good morning. Heidi Pruess, Climate and Sustainability Manager for the county. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and start. We're going to start with Climate Smart and Future Ready first, and then we'll give an update on our internal plan, if that's all right. You have materials in front of you, and I'll walk through that in a bit. You do have, in addition to the presentation, one document that has much more detail that is not complete yet. It's still in draft form. That is the table that I'm referring to. It's about a 16-page document. And so for more detail as we're going forward, you can refer to that. But today what I'm going to do is just give you a brief update about where we have been with Climate Smart and Future Ready. The last time I came before you with an update, we focused on our greenhouse gas inventory, and I haven't really provided you with an update since January last year. So thank you for hearing this information exchange since January last year. You can see we've been quite busy.
Heidi, forgive the interruption, but just to be clear, is it your preference to have questions along the way, or is it best to wait till the end of your presentation?
I'm happy either way. If you have a question and you want to just get it out there, go right ahead. And you
So
can submit
if there's a question that we really need to get out there, then we can interrupt you.
Just can't. That's right. You may.
Thank you kindly. Please.
Of course. So we have, since January last year, had 30 work group meetings. As part of the information that those work groups have been considering, we've had 3 greenhouse gas inventories completed, and we've had one video series that is leading into our second video series that is underway right now. So through that work, what have we done? We have developed 17 strategies over 4 different working focus areas. So I'm going to go into some of that information for you. Each one of those strategies has a series of actions, 24 actions to be precise, with numerous tactics. There's over 100 tactics right now that the work groups are considering. So this is quite a large effort encompassing many different focus areas. Who is conducting this work? We have many community entities as well as county departments. There are 10 county departments and 10 community partners that have stepped up to lead the way, to be our champions. They are not the only ones working on these strategies, but they are certainly the leaders and helping move the actions forward. What is it that they're focusing on? Well, we do have 3 objectives within Climate Smart and Future Ready. One is to improve the air quality and human health. One is to increase community resilience. And the third is to improve equity and the quality of life for our residents. So with those three objectives in mind, we needed a little bit of data to consider what does that mean in terms of translation into strategies and actions. The data that we are considering in large part for that first objective for improving air quality and human health is centered around our greenhouse gas emission inventory. In August last year, I did come before you. We had a full 1-hour work session on this community greenhouse gas inventory, the results of which are this summary slide that indicates for you that building energy, transportation, and then those goods and services that apply to how we operate our daily lives, as well as the waste that's created from them, compile like the three categories in this slide for this traditional approach. But we had a second greenhouse gas emission inventory that's called a consumption-based inventory. This expanded that traditional approach by looking outside Larimer County's boundaries to where are our goods and services coming from, and what does that impact look like when we think about our greenhouse gas emissions in our community. And so you can see this is a little bit different result in that food category, the buildings, and agriculture waste are a little bit of a bigger portion of the pie when it comes to this inventory, but these are all just pieces of data that are helping us prioritize what the strategies and actions are. So the working groups have been diving into the details, which I'm not going to go over today. We do have both of these two inventories posted on the county website that should you have questions, you can go gather more data there, more information there. And of course, my contact information is there that we can help answer any detailed questions that you might have. So these inventories indicated, again, we need to focus on energy in our buildings as our number one largest contributor in our community. Transportation is that second largest contributor, and then that consumption of food and materials to the tune of about 5 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalents that are a potential for us to address in the strategies and actions in this plan. Just for perspective, if we only looked at greenhouse gas emissions from a county perspective, you can see the scale there. Our county internal emission inventory resulted in about 114,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So if each one of our entities only looks at our piece, maybe we don't have the fullest picture. And so that's the benefit of Climate Smart and Future Ready, to work with our partners, to combine our efforts, and to focus our energy on those components that we can impact the most. So our working groups did take this data together with those objectives, and they did say, okay, these are the focus areas that I've reported to you before on these, but we did add a fourth focus area, and that is that this interconnection between the focus areas that have had some strategies and actions arise because they're uniform across each one of these focus areas. So let's see what this looks like then. The built environment, circular economy, business and jobs does have 6 strategies identified. 2 for the built environment around energy efficiency and electrification, renewable energy, and grid resilience. The circular economy component is that waste component. How is it that we're changing our waste into more of a circular economy going forward? Has 2 strategies, one around composting and recycling, and the other around materials, the end market expansion of those materials. Business and jobs then has 2 strategies, one around sustainable businesses and one on workforce development. The next column over indicates the highest level and the shortest number of words I could make to be descriptive for the actions that are going to be undertaken for those strategies. And as I mentioned before, There are many, many tactics that are engaged in, for instance, how are we going to address building code changes when it comes to energy efficiency and electrification? Eric Freed's in the room. He could tell me, I don't know right off the top of my head without looking at my cheat sheet here, how many tactics are involved, but there are many tactics, many steps that will be involved to get at that action, to understand how we're going to be effective in that strategy. So this is where we are in the process for this particular focus area. These are those areas that we think will help us meet those objectives. For mobility of people, goods, and services, we have wonderful partners in our North Front Range Metropolitan Transportation Planning Organization. These three in particular are strategies around electric vehicles and bikes, enhancing regional transportation, and that expanding non-motorized transportation. So you can see that there are a suite of actions there to help us address those strategies. Similarly for the natural environment, water, and agriculture. So you can see that we have 6 strategies here: wildlife ecosystems, disaster mitigation and adaptation, water planning and use, and then regional agricultural soils and local food markets that make up that agricultural component together with our nonprofit partners in the community. I did mention that there were these interconnected strategies that are kind of in between these focus areas. And so I just want to highlight for you that there are combined teams of these champions for each one of these strategies that will be coming together to address unifying solutions. And that includes solutions that deal with equity, land use planning, policy, and legislation, and sharing and receiving information, developing that communication network.
Pardon me, Heidi. Yes, Commissioner, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm sorry, Heidi. And when you talk about agricultural soils and soil health, obviously, I'm thinking also there's forest health, soil health, and some of the burn scars, 210,000 acres or more of soil that's been scorched, and that's a really important carbon capture and things. So I'm wondering, are you feeling like soil health and some of that recovery in the watersheds is addressed in other areas, maybe area 1 and 2? Or are we just focusing on the soil health for agricultural soils? Because I feel like that's really important because we're doing a lot of work with that.
Yeah, thank you for the...
For the Colorado Forest Health Council. I'm just curious about that because I think that's an important piece because it's a really large piece of our county that was scorched. So.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We've had many, many discussions around where do soils fit. And there are other topics like this that could be spread across our different strategies. Certainly, both in the wildfire ecosystems, that first category under the natural environment, trying to address and encompass some tactics around forests, forest health, forest soils are there, as well as within the both the agricultural soils and this disaster mitigation and adaptation piece, where we're talking about what are the actions that we're taking there. So I think that there are some topics that are not unique unto themselves because they are part and parcel of the actions that need to happen to have success in these other larger strategies.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on what Commissioner Sheddock McNally said. And are you suggesting, Jody, that it might be a good idea if we can to, put that language in somewhere? In other words, a specific reference to forest and watershed health or something along those lines?
Yeah, I think that might be important. I know that the staff have been really working hard on this, but I think soil health and watershed health, that's all related. And I think it's the forest health is also, and I think that's, as we see, I'm going to get kind of wonky here. I'm really obsessed with vapor pressure deficit and some of these changing conditions in our forests. And that includes everyone else's yard and my forest, what little forest I have. But even the folks that live, it's changing the conditions of how our plants and our trees are not thriving. And there's going to be forest failure, and there's going to be some restoration failure and things. So I'm just thinking that, if we don't call it out, we're maybe not thinking, but if it's embedded, I think people have to understand the importance of soil health. I think it's really, of course, I've been watching some documentaries, the one that's talking about the dirt or whichever one that is, that how important soil health is for climate changes. So I feel like, especially if we have a lot of soils that need some attention, I just feel like maybe that should be at least addressed there. Forest health, or it may be forest health or water. I agree with forest health, something that kind of pulls that in. So just thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. I will bring that back to the working groups. Appreciate that feedback.
I do see that mentioned under A2, agriculture, develop agriculture programs and facilitate communities focused on soil health practices. So I think that could be maybe expanded in that area without adding something completely new.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So you can see there's a lot in this plan. We do have an attempt to allow the working groups and the focus teams to dig into the details and be sure that the tactics are addressing our potential for realizing something different than what we have today, but that we also need to combine the efforts when it comes to communicating with the community and creating a communication that's a little bit clearer about how we're connecting, in particular, to human health, these issues. There were, in the last year packet there, you'll see some detail around these 3 strategies that I have listed as being in the appendix. These strategies were discussed at length in the working groups, came up with some actions and even some tactics around what could potentially be actions that we could take for these 3 strategy areas. But for a variety of reasons, they're in the appendix for us to not lose them, but maybe consider them in the future. Maybe they're dependent on the outcomes of a strategy that's in the plan. And maybe they're dependent on the actions that maybe the state is already taking around developing a program or a policy around these, that we need to wait for that outcome before we can take further action. So we're holding these for the future and future discussions. You might have been wondering who it is that's working on these when I mentioned the 10 county departments and the 10 partners. So here they are, listed on the screen. Does this mean that the county departments that are not listed here are not included? That's not what it means. What it means is these are the departments from the county and our community partners that have stepped up to say, we're willing to lead the discussion, help make sure that we're moving these issues forward, and are helping to connect our action items with other action items and other strategies. So you can see here the suite of very hardworking county departments that are engaged with this, that you'll see a little bit more of this as we get into the strategic plan, because there's also some alignment there. But our community partners, I'd like to really highlight them, because this has been a county initiative to bring it forward into the community, and these partners are willing to step up and help lead the way on these topics. That's a little bit risky. That's a little bit of a new endeavor, and so we'll see how this goes, but I hope that you'll help me thank them for stepping up to lead the way, and we'll see how it goes forward into the future. We do have many other partner entities that are not listed here that are engaged, but these are the leaders. And so this is the last slide on Climate Smart, what is going to be happening over the next year. So we're currently in this draft plan stage. The champions have been identified, and we are currently taking that greenhouse gas analysis, comparing that to the actions that have been identified as draft actions and tactics, and doing a little bit of a modeling exercise to try to identify what kind of impact can we really have on those greenhouse gas emission results, and understanding maybe if this is the right priority or if there need to be some modifications made. So that's coming here in the next quarter or two. We'll finalize a greenhouse gas reduction goal with the executive team. So we're going to have a goal as part of that first objective to help us have some north arrow. Where are we shooting for? We will finalize the plan, which will not be a 150-page documented plan, but rather be a website with a dashboard that can help us be live so that we can articulate in real time what's the progress, what kind of partnerships do we have, and what actions are being taken. We'll have a little celebration, maybe two, in this first or second quarter of 2024 for those partners who have stepped up in particular with our county departments. In the third quarter, we'll start implementing. So our working groups are going to transition from advisory groups and really those who have kind of been brainstorming the meat of this plan into the smaller focus teams that are implementing the plan. And so there's going to be a little bit of adjustment there as we go forward. And then that will happen simultaneously with our second round of videos coming out, which are going to help us kick off our communication plan with the community. What is this all about? Why should we be concerned in the first place? That sort of thing. So that second video series will be coming out in quarter 3 to launch our communication with the community. And then ongoing, we're projecting that this will be about a 5-year plan to see how we do with this experiment and learning how to partner with each other on these topics, and coming back to you to see if we need to revisit maybe the focus areas or the strategies and that sort of thing. So that's what's going to be happening over the foreseeable future. Questions? Yes, and I'm done with my presentation. I'm happy to take your questions, and I just want to be sure that we leave time for our internal plan.
And before we see what other questions or comments my colleagues have, I see that you have at least 2 people at the conference table from solid waste and building. Will they be presenting or be part of the presentation from Abby on the internal work?
We have this wonderful suite of partners in the room, both county departments and our city partner, to help answer any questions that you might have.
And how much time do you need, Abby, just to make sure?
10 minutes.
Yeah, we're good. So with that, thank you. I'd want to, let's see, Commissioner Stevens, thank you, I'm paying attention. Commissioner Stevens, you have questions, comments, observations, and we'll turn it over to Jody.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the work, and thank you for the work that you've done to gather all these great partners, because I think that's a big piece. We always talk about ourselves as a convener, and this is a great example of how we can go beyond sort of our own expertise and really engage those other folks that can help us make this work happen. So the questions I have one question about land use planning, and as we see some of these things come up at the state level, so clearly we're doing some of this work internally. And then there's also sort of these policies that we can advocate for. So do you see that advocating at the state or federal level as a piece of any of this? Knowing that there's going to be a lot coming up in the legislature around land use code, that the pieces that came forward last year, which I think were good because we really need to build more compact and walkable communities and build more density in our communities. I think that, to me, that plays a big role in our GHG. We have 30,000 people that just in Fort Collins that drive in to work every day. I mean, it would be nice to make a place for them in our community. So I guess what do you see around advocacy at the federal and state level? And then just if you could just elaborate a little bit about what we're thinking about land use planning.
Thank you very much for the question. I put up this slide again with the list of county departments and our community partners to just highlight for you that land use planning is not the only legislative priority that will help us impact, but certainly is a huge piece of it. And so we do have our county departments who have stepped up in those realms, both in land use planning realm as well as in the legislative realm, to help us look beyond what it is we're doing in this internal county plan. Just like we have our internal greenhouse gas inventory, we have the community greenhouse gas inventory, there is one at the state level that is being influenced by the work that's happening at that state legislative policy that certainly will impact what we do and how we can do it. Sorry, thank you. And so, yes, certainly those considerations are in play, and if you look at the details within the tactics that are drafted right now, there's a discussion of land use frequently, even outside of the land use category, and there's a discussion frequently with regard to policy development and legislation. So that's why, that's part of that that connected strategy between the focus areas.
Great. And then I just wanted to kind of put an exclamation point on the equity piece, because I think that piece is so important. So, to me, we can't talk about these issues without talking about the people that are disproportionately impacted communities around climate change. And so I just wanted to thank you for including that as a piece that's sort of the interconnected piece, because we know that climate change affects people in different ways, and that people who have lower incomes are more affected by the effects of climate change. And so, and industrial production and roads and there's so many ways that these people who are often people of color, or people under the poverty level, that are more impacted by anything that happens. And so kind of rethinking how we do this in an equity space is just something that we're all passionate about. And so thank you for keeping that as a piece that we always have in mind as we do this work.
Thank you, Kristen. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we're kind of running short on time, so it might be something I can ask later, but I'm curious about the website, talking about the website plan. I mean, my head kind of went, woo, that'd be kind of cool to do as education things. And I'm looking over at our partners from Fort Collins and others, just kind of showing how we're all working together. I don't know if they have their goals and they're showing how they're reaching it, or they have a link on their websites to our website, or how can we also have their, one town is now, or one city is now looking at having a plan that didn't have a plan before. And I know they're looking to maybe just copy what we're doing. How can we share and uplift everyone's work on the website, if that's something? And then is there like a graph or a meter showing us how we're reaching these goals? I mean, I'm just, and maybe this is too much to share. You can share with me later. My head's spinning how we could excite everyone, but also I would love. I think it's a great way to showcase a partnership. Or even I could see like the watersheds showing how they did some restoration work and increased the carbon capture here. We're increasing it here and decreasing it there. And I just see there's some really cool things there. I'm wondering if there's a lot of plans for that, and if will it be housed here, or is it a separate entity that's going to house it, and will everyone be contributing, and what does that look like? Or maybe those are all one question you can answer later, but I'm just kind of excited about that.
Well, you just made my head explode. So you're right. I mean, it could really try to be the end all be all of a dashboard or something that could try to relay all the information that the community could possibly want to know about climate change in one stop. I don't know that we're quite going to be there. I do think that we're going to try to link to the good work of our partners, their existing fabulous websites, and try to connect those efforts and drive people to the places where they can find even more information. We've been through a couple of drafts, but we are not final with it. So I can't share it with you because I don't even know. I'm excited too. I do think that it is going to be there's emphasis on data and what we are talking about as far as indicators go, that while we may not have individual goals for every single one of the 125 tactics that we have, we certainly have indicators that will tell us how we're doing and if we're headed in the right direction. So we have some of that as well as this connection piece. But thank you for that feedback. I'll be sure that we're highlighting the work of
Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. I want to express some appreciation, and then I believe I have 2 or 3 questions. First of all, thank you to the folks here from the various Larimer County departments: building, planning, fleet, IT, natural resources, and of course solid waste. So I appreciate all the hard work that you all have put into this. I feel like we've come a long way, and I'm very grateful for that. And certainly our community partners, and that leads into my first question, and that is, seeing that we have Jacob here from the city of Fort Collins, I'm wondering the work, I know they've probably been closely involved, but the work or what we're coming up with, how well does it align with the city of Fort Collins? And because they've kind of led the charge on this issue over the last number of years, and I want to make sure that there's close collaboration. We're not reinventing the wheel, and we're complementing and aligning, where it makes sense. So I wonder if you could speak to that, Heidi, or perhaps we could bring Mr. Castillo up for old time's sake.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. It is always going to be a work in progress because our plans are continuously in motion as we learn more information, as we understand better how we can work together. We have made some effort to that, but I would welcome the comments from...
Yeah, and before we turn it over to Jacob, and I think you know the routine, Jacob, I'm curious, one more corollary question to that that's perhaps a bit more specific. So you mentioned that the county, in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, we're moving towards this consumer-based approach. And so I'm wondering if that methodology is what the city is using. And when Kristen brought up about the state, is that the same methodology that the state is using? So we're all on the same page determining, where our levels are and what are appropriate goals for reduction. Thank you kindly.
I will just share before Jacob jumps in that it's very helpful to always have multiple ways to look at the work that you're doing and analyze successes or where opportunities are for improvement. So to my knowledge, the state has not conducted a consumption greenhouse gas inventory for the entire state. There are some other counties that have, and so we have some comparison tools there, but we're a little bit on the cutting edge when it comes to trying to understand the data in a variety of different ways.
Thank you, and respectfully, Jacob, I would ask you to be as succinct as you can. Kind of conjures up old past memories a little bit.
Well, thank you for the reminder, Commissioner Kafalis. My name is Jacob Castillo, and I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for the City of Fort Collins. Pleasure to be here this morning, and a pleasant surprise to be invited to the table to speak. I was not expecting that. What I would like to share is the partnership with the county is really important for the City of Fort Collins in achieving its climate goals. We know that one municipality alone cannot have the impact that we hope to have across the globe. So regional partnerships are critical to our success in this space. The plan that we have, or the guiding document that we have, is called Our Climate Future. And rather than referring to it as a plan, it's more of a guiding document or a framework for organizing action. And while there's a handful of strategies and tactics that the city itself can own, we know that if we're going to meet our aggressive climate goals, that it's going to take the county, other actors, private sector, and individuals to make change and ultimately help us to achieve those goals. So I do want to answer a question that previously came up around the consumption-based emissions inventory. The City of Fort Collins is currently not doing that, but that is something that we can take into consideration. And Commissioner Shattuck McNally, your question and comment earlier on how we may be able to, in a more unified way, present information, measures, metrics to the community is something I took notes on. I'll make sure to bring that up with our Climate Future Executive Team, which will be inviting Heidi to join this year to make sure that there is more collaboration between our two organizations. I'd be happy to answer any more specific questions or share anything else that might be of interest to the commissioners.
Thank you very much, Jacob, and you're welcome to stay at the table if you wish, but I'd like to, unless there are any other questions or comments from my colleagues at this point, I'd like to transition over to hearing about the ICARE program and give Abby an opportunity, and I imagine there'll be time at the end for us to have a kind of a group discussion. Welcome, Abby.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Abby Stapleton. I'm a sustainability program coordinator here with Larimer County. I work with Heidi. So today I'm going to be giving a kind of a brief update on the internal Climate Action, Resilience, and Education Plan, also referred to as ICARE. It was adopted in 2022, so this coming summer is going to be the 2-year mark, and that'll be more of the in-depth version of kind of the updates that we have. So this is definitely brief, but I still wanted to share some of the accomplishments that our team's been doing. So before we get into those, I want to stress the team collaboration that's going on in this plan. There's several departments involved. We've been meeting monthly, and there's a lot of different feedback that we give between departments and different folks that are involved. So thank you, everyone that is involved in the plan that's here today and that's also listening in. It's been really good to get to know each other, to get to know the team better as I have gotten this new role with the county. So first, the accomplishment I'm going to share that we've been going through is that facilities has been looking into ways to reduce their greenhouse gases, and they've been working with Train to determine buildings that these reductions are the most feasible. So that's a work in progress right now, but still definitely something I wanted to note today because we are really working on our energy here at the county. And also, we are looking into a mechanical systems comparison for the new emergency services capital project. So that's going to be a comparison for kind of our traditional HVAC system that we might be having at the county. And instead of focusing on retrofits, it's just like an option that we've been looking at for a new building. It's definitely easier and more cost effective to implement some of these new energy systems that are out there into a new building. So that'll be coming to you guys in the next few months. We've launched a green office supply purchasing program that's focused on Amazon and Office Depot. And we've also trained some county staff on ways they can look into those and purchase more sustainably. Our first electric vehicle was added to our fleet. It's a Ford Lightning, so super exciting news from Fleet, and we hope to get more of those in the future, but this is our first one, so it's very exciting. We have a bronze recognition pending for SolSmart, so after a few more things, we're going to get that bronze recognition, and we are going towards silver right now with that as well. And we've also been awarded $81,000 for EV charging stations from the Charge Ahead grant. So that will help us with 2 charging stations. We are hopeful to pursue 2 or 3 more, but we're kind of working on what we're going to do since we're only awarded for 2 of those. Those 2 locations are going to be the Carter Lake admin building over in Loveland for natural resources. And that's we're also going to have a fast charger here at 200 West Oak, the admin building in Fort Collins. So I have another page of accomplishments to share with you that have been, again, happening kind of since last July, since the last update that Heidi gave. We have 2 new sites to monitor ground level ozone. Those are in Timnath and Loveland. This is something our environmental health department has been working on. Both are expected to be collecting data by June this year. And there is a program called Mow Down Pollution, if you've heard of it. It's a way that residents can swap their gas-powered lawn equipment for the electric version of that, and there were nearly 300 vouchers from residents that were redeemed, and this is working in partnership with the Regional Air Quality Council, also known as RAC. Our Office of Emergency Management has a community mitigation grant, and this grant aims to remove financial barriers for mitigation work at the community scale and just kind of allow communities to partner through kind of these small grant awards. They're about $10,000 per grant, per community, that they can get up to $10K. So last year, $55,000 was awarded for 8 communities. So it's really awesome work that OEM is working on. And then through HR, we've had a Guaranteed Ride Home program launched. So that is a program that kind of encourages alternative transportation to work. So some employees might find a barrier that they don't want to take the bus to work or carpool in case they have to get home for an emergency. So this program allows employees to have 2 reimbursable emergency rides home, so they can get home however they want if there's an emergency if they took alternative transportation to work. So that just started around last November, something that we're still kind of getting out there to Larimer County employees that this is available. And then Natural Resources has completed a public survey, and that's one of their really big, wide, across Larimer County surveys. So that's going to help inform the 2026 Open Master Plan update. And then we do have an employee sustainability awareness team that you've heard of. It's been kind of going on since this internal plan started, also referred to as ESAT. And we've hosted an alternative transportation training, virtually and in person, last fall. And we have an Eco Edition newsletter that is available for all employees to sign up for. You subscribe to it, and it comes every other month. And it just has internal updates as well as some green practices and different community events that are going on around sustainability. So since the last update in July last year, a few actions and goals were moved to Climate Smart Future Ready. So Heidi just kind of presented on what's going on with Climate Smart. And as that initiative was being updated, our team felt that some of the ICARE goals were better suited to go into Climate Smart Future Ready, because before that, we didn't have the community plan. So ICARE was kind of like, what all can we do? And some of those were a little bit more community than internal. So some of them have been flipped over to Climate Smart Future Ready. And along with that, after analyzing our greenhouse gas inventories, we updated our remaining goals with to be SMART goals. So SMART is measurable, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And a few of them were SMART before, but since last July, we've been really, really working with everyone on our team to try to find a way that we can make our goals more specific and measurable and everything here in SMART. So I want to give you some updates on the ones that were updated this past few months. So the first focus area I'll start with is the built environment, waste, and economy focus area. And in this one, I am just going to go through with these focus areas, the ones that were updated. So those are the pieces in red. I'm not going to read through all 12 of our goals, just kind of the ones that we've made into SMART goals. So we hope to reduce our methane released by the landfill by 18% by 2026. And then the next goal in this focus area would be kind of an all-department goal, because it's about office supplies. So all of our offices kind of purchased from Amazon and Office Depot. So this is a kind of a very broad goal for all departments. It's to expand our dollars spent on these supplies to 30% by 2030, and then also increase the number of RFPs utilizing sustainable criteria. So we've implemented another criteria that we give departments that they can choose to add to their RFPs. It's not mandatory, but it's something that has been successful so far in the past few months. So trying to get some of our vendors to look to see that the county is interested in having them also be sustainable while we work with them. Moving on to the mobility, delivery, and goods and internet services focus area. This first goal up here is the only one that's updated. It's kind of a lot because it involves Department of Natural Resources and Engineering, but it's kind of put into the same one because they coordinate with each other. So we want to increase the miles of regional paved trails in unincorporated Larimer County 30% by 2043. That's the Department of Natural Resources aspect because it is trails. And then we also have increased widened shoulders by 20% by 2030, and that's on engineering side. And then we just have one goal in the natural environment, water and ag focus area that was updated, and that's to ensure no more than 5% total of county open space lands are developed with hard infrastructure. And then in our well-being and resilience focus area, we just have, this is actually a brand new goal, by 2035, see a 10% reduction in average ozone level measured at Larimer County monitoring stations. So we were looking at our 2022 baseline, which is all of these goals have 2022 baselines, and seeing what we can do by 2035 for our ozone. And that is all that of my updates. So let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Abby. Well done. I'm wondering, one of your slides, the mobility slide, it seemed like you skipped over 3 of the bullet points. Could you go back to that and just quickly highlight those? They're pretty important.
Yeah, sure. Yep. I just wanted to make sure that I was mostly focusing on the goals that we've updated. So these are the
Oh, I
same goals
see.
that were last year, but if you want me to just go through these, I will.
Please.
We do have a goal to install 4 fast chargers and 4 level 2 chargers for EVs on county property by 2025. So as I mentioned, we got that grant for 2 of those, so that's definitely in par with this goal right here. And then we have, this one's for our fleet, increase average miles per gallon of county light duty fleet by 20%. So that's kind of trying to focus on those hybrid vehicles and those more energy efficiency vehicles that departments can choose to have in their fleet. And then reduce vehicle miles traveled by employees 20%. So that's looking at their drive to work.
Thank you. Colleagues, yes, Jody?
Thank you, Commissioner Kafalis. Abby, at first, I don't know if I thanked everyone before for all your work. It's really exciting to see where this plan's come from when we started in 2021. And just really thankful for all this work and our partners. Just the large group of people working with this is heartening and very exciting. So if I hadn't expressed my heartfelt appreciation, gratitude, let me just say that, and great work. Abby, I'm curious, back to the mobility goals and also to this guaranteed ride home program launched and some of those things. I see a couple, I don't know if since we are collaborating across the county, and I know the town of Berthoud received a grant for microtransit, and I'm wondering, I'm not sure if another community did. In the back of my head, that's still kind of in 2023. I think there might have been maybe 2 communities in Larimer County. I think it might be an opportunity for us to, I don't know if we looked into that, to seeing what they're up to and how we could support that or what we can learn from that, since we have employees who live in those communities that are commuting. And maybe that's an opportunity for us to encourage that or support that. I know in Park City was hosted by the City of Fort Collins in Larimer County, that Park City was Utah was very excited about their microtransit. I guess it is kind of a model. And so I'm very curious about that. And I didn't know if that's something we could look at as a help for our employees, especially if that last mile home. And we know certain parts of the county, like unincorporated areas, but even Berthoud and that is really, or even Wellington, it's really hard to get transit or get to transit. So I'm curious about that. If we know anything about that, or that's something that we could look into to see if we could build off of or support or learn from, et cetera. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't looked too much into specifically how to help our employees get from Berthoud to here, but with the alternative transportation training that ESAT did, that was about an hour-long training that had Colt in it from the Loveland Transportation. It had talking about bus staying. It had the North Front Range NPO in it. So we definitely involved like 4 or 5 different partners in that to kind of talk about all of the systems that we currently have and the routes and everything, and get them connected with who you can call if you have a from and a to and you want to know how to get there alternatively.
Yeah, and I know those are basically still around the big city of Loveland and those. I'm talking about Wellington and Berthoud and
Right.
and even down into Johnstown, and it's just kind of, I mean, it's great that have Mustang and Colt, but to get to those places, and that's that micro transit that some people are getting, that I'm wondering about if we have looked at that or thought about that, or we could kind of learn from what Berthoud's doing with their micro grant, because if we could build upon that, we might be able to support something like that. I think would encourage more folks to get to do more transit if they didn't have that barrier. And I know that because my children, during the summer when they lived at home and during college and needed to go work in the lab, I'd have to drive them to the bus station to take Colt and all that down to Boulder to the labs. And I know it was always that. They would try to ride their bikes, but I know it's always that hard part to get to the transportation hub to be able to use that. And so that's why I'm asking about that. Is that something that we have thought about? And I know I was just reading about it again over the weekend in some articles that some Berthoud residents sent me that they wanted me to be aware of, and that mentioned the microtransit grant again. Thank you.
Yeah, I can definitely reach out to Berthoud and see what they're doing, what kind of work they have going on there.
And I would offer, and we have Leslie here, but that suggestion maybe should go back to our engineering folks, because I think we are in the process of updating our regional master transportation plan, and seems like it would make sense to have more discussion about options related to this concept of microtransit. So good suggestion.
To your point, Commissioner, I'll just mention that that's also within Climate Smart and Future Ready, is that we're working towards understanding a more regional approach overall, inclusive of these different areas in microtransit. So
Thank you. Let's see, Commissioner Stevens, any questions or comments?
I have a couple questions. So first of all, remind me who's paying for the ozone, the locations where we're collecting ozone data in Timnath, and do we know, are we paying for that?
I believe we are in Loveland. I'm not sure about who is paying for the Timnath site, but we are monitoring.
Yeah.
I believe that was part of that first initial group that we did with the 4 temporary sites that we put in to help get the 4 temporary sites. And now we're hoping to keep the 4 sites. Maybe that's what my recollection was, because there was one in the level and there was the extra ones that were kind of the Timnath and the other ones. And then I think there was supposed to be the year we were supposed to get the feedback and see if Fort Collins had gone in and we had gotten those 4 sites. And I think that might have been through the health department, and then we're waiting to see what that
Right,
came
my
back.
recollection is a health department partnership with the cities.
And Colorado
through
State University.
Yeah,
I
yes.
think there's some grant funds involved in those sites.
I'm slightly questioning one in Timnath, and the only reason is because we know about ozone, and it's really, the highest sites are on the west side, up against the foothills, notoriously in both the Denver area and our area. And so I didn't know, I guess and there again, maybe people smarter than I have talked about placement, but I just don't know that, is that because there's the expectation that there's the high levels because of some of the oil and gas operations in Weld County, but I mean, traditionally, the numbers, one of the highest numbers in our region is West Fort Collins, then NREL's site in the Denver area, some Chatfield, I don't know all their place names there in Denver, but anyway, I don't know if we, and I know that other communities that have their own ozone monitors are asking RAC now for money to do upkeep. So I guess as we think about it, I just want us to sort of keep that in mind. And then with regard to the RAC's mow-down pollution program, I'm really happy to hear that 300 residents took advantage of changing out from gas-powered, because once you do it, you'll never go back to a smelly garage that smells like gasoline. But how is the county doing internally around our operations for, let's say, maintenance at our own properties and things like that? Because there may be some requirements coming through the Air Quality Commission around that. RAC certainly pushed something forward to the Air Quality Commission that would require local governments, and that includes special districts, in not using gas-powered equipment during the high ozone months of July and August. So I just wonder where we are at, because I think we need to be prepared with all kinds of equipment to be able to, they're including chainsaws, so anything that's smaller, not riding mowers, but anything smaller than that would be required, and so.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. Ken Cooper, Facilities Director. Yeah, we're working with our vendor, and they've made a changeover on a few of their pieces already. They had already converted over a good number of them, before this last bid exercise. So I think they're ahead of the curve in terms of, what I guess the typical population is. And so good news there, so.
And I'm Dalen Figgs, Director for Natural Resources, and we're anticipating that change as well. We recently received a grant through Modown for about $24,000 to begin replacement of gas-powered equipment as well.
Good, and my understanding is that even companies that service, that have local government as a client, so, if we're hiring people to do the landscaping around this building, for example, that they would also be eligible for those grants, so.
That is true, Commissioner, and as a matter of fact, our vendor did receive a grant, one of those grants, and switched over their fleet for this building, and I don't know, however many other buildings. 90% of their fleet was switched over to electric through that grant program.
Yeah, that's great, and also good for the people who are using those, they're not breathing in those fumes too, and so as we care about the people that work with us and for us, that's great. I think that's all for me now. I'll let somebody else take a turn.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I'll just offer a little bit more information regarding the air quality monitoring stations. It's my understanding that there was a careful analysis done in terms of those locations that currently we have, and these will be able to capture additional emissions that the current air quality monitoring stations, which are mostly up against on the western side of the county. So it was determined that there were gaps on the eastern side, which could capture some of the emissions that may be coming over from Weld County, and a location on the southern part of the county. And it is a collaborative effort with, I think, the state as well as Colorado State University. So hopefully, and it may be, Commissioner, that for Lorenda's sake, maybe we should ask our health department folks, Health and Environment, Tom Gonzalez and his folks to come and give us an update on where we're at with our air quality monitoring. So I wanted to offer that, mindful of the time, 11:55. If there are any other questions, comments, observations, or perhaps closing comments, and we want to give Lorenda a chance if she has anything to add. But you all know that I get cranky if we go over.
I just, thank you, Commissioner Kafalis. Just want to thank you all. This is really important work, and I know it's a lot of things to tackle, but it's just really heartening to see the collaboration and the work. So I just want to thank you all, because I know this is above and beyond duties as assigned, and I just want to express my gratitude. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Well said. Commissioner Stevens, anything you'd like to add at this moment?
No, just thank you, and there's obviously, I mean, I probably have a million more questions, but I'll reserve those. Thank you all.
And so, Lorenda, maybe you could close us out with some great wisdom.
I don't know about the great wisdom, but great appreciation. As I was looking at these slides last week, I was really struck by how far we've come. You know, you create a plan like this, you set a path, you collaborate with your partners, and you know things will happen. But seeing this work, things are happening. The relationships are forming. The website is on the cusp of being available. I love the idea that it's a product in motion always, that it's not something we print and put on a shelf, but rather it's open for the public to see and participate in and contribute in their way. This is great work to the two of you. I know you two are the shepherds of the process, both internal and external. The county team has been very interested in participating, very involved in this process. To our partners, yay, thank you for stepping forward, because it's really hard to say, I'll own something in someone else's plan. And I'll take responsibility for getting that group together and moving that concept forward. So I am very impressed with how much has happened since July of last year, and look forward to the next time we talk and see what leaps and bounds we've made by then.
Thank you, Lorenda. And I'm reminded that when I was reading the information over the weekend, I almost got a bit emotional, because we've been on this journey for a few years. And as Lorenda said, we have come a long way. Lots of challenges, lots of opportunities. I think we're making a genuine effort to make a difference. So I'm grateful to all of the folks here from the various departments. I'm certainly grateful for our community departments in the city of Fort Collins, because I believe they've led the way in this stuff for a number of years. So with that, much appreciation from all of us. Thanks to our solid waste folks as well, because that's an important piece of the puzzle. With that, at 11:58, we are adjourned. Thank you all.